Welcome to the first in a series of videos that deals with something in programming, both Java and C++, called classes. It will be a bit of a learning curve even for people who have worked with programming languages before, but I wanted to give you a concept of what classes are in the world of programming and in application. And again, as you get into this and practice with it, I think the concepts will become much more easily attained for everyone. I want to show you a program that we used several years ago here at CCC, and I think we're doing it in the C++ class even now, called Alice. Alice basically, and you don't have to know it on a test in case there's anyone really nervous about this. Alice basically is a program that allows you to make various worlds or various environments. Think video games with all the different scenes and all the different characters and what they can do. You can kind of think of the Xbox, Wii, PlayStation type items. I'm going to take this particular world and I'm going to add something to this called an object. Don't worry again about Alice in this particular case, but I'm going into the animal area and I'm going to choose an animal called a frog. I can use any of these, and when I choose a frog right here, there it is, I'll click on that frog, and if you can see this on the screen, it will give me some different features about the frog. You'll see something called methods. What it can do, it can say ribbit, it can nod its head, it has a color, it has a certain number of feet, etc. And when I add this thing called an instance to the world of Java, it gives me a screen similar to this, and I think if I remember my Alice correctly, it's been a long time since I've done this, but I think I can make this a little bit larger. I'm not going to do a lot of fighting with this, but it's been a number of months, maybe a couple years since I've actually worked with Alice before. It just has to come back to me, and I'll resize this. There we go. I've got a big frog right now. Over here on the far right of the screen, far left of the screen rather, I've got some various attributes I can have with that frog. Now the frog right now, if you look at on the left hand side of the screen, there are some things that it can do. Think verbs if you want to, and I'm sorry about the saving issue. This is just a little fluke that's come up. A frog can move, it can turn, it can be resized, it can say something, it can play, it can rivet, it can move away or towards something. And I can look even at the general properties of that frog, and I need to click on the frog to look at this. It can have a particular color. It can have the color of its eyes, the color of its skin, the number of arms and legs, as this program says that it has. And you can vary these changes. This is just kind of a visual picture of the concept of what an object is. And again, this vocabulary will start becoming a little bit easier to understand later. I'll go to this definition in just a second. I want to go down here and I want to look at this particular object called a car, or this could be a class. A car, what can a car do? A car has physical properties. It has a number of wheels. It has the number of windows. It has a color. And those are nouns. Those are descriptive characteristics or properties of it. We call these attributes in computer programming. The car has certain functions that it can do. It can be driven. You can drive it. You can put it in reverse. You can fill it with gas. You can spin it. You can drive it, as I said, and those are called methods. The vending machine over here on the right. The vending machine has a size. It has a color. It has the number of drinks, or in this case the number of packages of potato chips or crackers inside of it. And what can you do with this vending machine as far as actions or verbs? You can insert coins. You can dispense something with it. You can reload it. You could shake it if the money didn't go through properly. And again, this is the whole concept of what we mean in programming when we talk about objects. And really this is kind of a primary basis for a lot of movies, like Pixar. And sorry for the noise right here with my headphone. You have the actions and the physical features or properties kind of mixed with it. Think of when we make these, we can make lots of different kinds of cars, lots of different kinds of vending machines, lots of frogs, or lots of puppies and kitties if they're reproducing as families. And you basically have something that is a blueprint for that mass production. And we call this in programming a class. You see the definition, a very simplistic definition, on the screen right now. A class is a blueprint from which we can make something. You usually think of a blueprint that we use to make various houses. I can take that same blueprint and make a bunch of exact houses, or I can vary those houses by the number of bedrooms or baths, or what size they are, what color the walls are, etc. A class could be used called car, but I could have different kinds of cars, different sizes, different features in the cars. I could have a blueprint or a class for a vending machine, but there could be different kinds of vending machines by size, by the items that they contain. You could think of a class also maybe as a cookie cutter, because we can use a cookie cutter during these holidays when I'm recording this video, and I can make cookies that are the same size, different shapes, but I can have but the basic blueprint, the basic cookie cutter allows me to make lots of cookies. And when we're talking about classes in programming, we want to use two words that describe what something looks like. Again, the physical features, the color, the size, and we call these attributes. You can think in terms of nouns if you're into parts of speech right here. And within this same blueprint also we can have actions that it can do. Think in terms of verbs, and we call these methods. So your vocabulary words, which you'll get used to in time, are the word class, the word attributes, the word methods. And once we have made an example, or what we call an instance of a class, something we create from that blueprint, we create a house from that blueprint, we create a cookie from that cookie cutter, we refer to these as objects, just like that frog in Alice a minute ago was an object. And sometimes they'll use the word instance instead of the word object. Now again, this is something you have to get used to as computer students as you go along. Don't fold your arms and get frustrated really easily. Nothing typically is an instantaneous learning concept until you have a chance to practice with it, so don't give up on me. Now if I'm looking at the actual Java code right here, I will show you an example of what I call, when I say simple class, I mean just some basics behind it. What I have right here is a particular class, and I want to make sure I'm doing this correctly. I have an example of a class that I'm calling, sorry about that, I could have called it any name I wanted to, but I decided to call the name of this class Student 1. Now again, this may take some getting used to later on. Again, don't be afraid of it, don't be upset. And this is one of the few programs in Java that you'll encounter in this course where you don't have a main routine to drive it. Alright, I'm calling this, I could call this Student or Student 1, it doesn't matter. I'm calling the name of this class. This is the class name right here. This is the blueprint. That's the class name, or the blueprint for that class. I can't spell the word blueprint these days apparently, and I can't get my eraser to work. Here we go. I'll get it going. Thank you again always for your patience. Now I use a different color. Blueprint for the class. Alright, that class, and I'll just use an example right here. That class has some attributes to it. These are called the properties, or the more formal word for it right now that we use is the word attributes. There are three attributes which I have to define by data type, just like I do variables. A student in my definition has a name, a GPA, and the number of hours they're taking. So you can almost think of a variable in a way that has three different parts to it, and there they are right there. Alright, and then I have methods. Now you're not going to see necessarily physical characteristics in this particular example. You're going to simply see methods that allow me to store information in this class blueprint and ways of printing it out. It's a little bit different and a little less conventional than I usually have, but most of the time you'll see these with the names set and get in front of them. Now you have to be real careful about your syntax or your punctuation grammar in these, but just to maybe help you out, I'll look at this group first. That's called set. Now it's a little confusing at first until you practice with it. You'll notice what happens right here. I've got the name of the object. Here's the one called name. Here's the one called GPA. Here's the one called hours. And what these particular methods do is they allow me to assign values to those attributes or to those properties. For example, if I wanted the student to be Michael Sisk with a 3.7 GPA and taking 17 semester hours, there are ways that I assign those values to that class or that class object. The other set of statements are right here, which I'll put in green, and this is the way that I get that information. I'll get stuff out of the variables. Again, they are still methods, but they're different kinds of methods right here. They're called accessors. You'll notice that in this case I've still got the word name, the word GPA, the word hours, but you'll see something that says return in all of these cases. It will be more easily explained if I actually show you. And this class has to be defined, and you can kind of imitate it right now as you're trying to do programs. And I'll make these very simplistic since we're at the end of the semester. I don't want to put unnecessary pressure on you, and I'll do some guiding in helping you get through this. But I'm going to take this particular definition of a class called student, or student 1 in this case, and beside this I may end up having some squeezing issues when I show you this code side by side, but I'll hope that I'll be able to allow you to see them both at the same time and see if this will give you some kind of relationship. This may be a little bit tricky for me to do because sometimes Windows wants to be more helpful than it should. Now if you look at this particular class over on the right, I have, and everything's called a class in Java, so that sometimes is what is confusing to people. I have something here that is called, and I'm going to get all this mess out of the way, that is called show student. You're going to see some erasing going on your screen right now, and I'll do this with several examples, and I may end up repeating this in a video after this, but I want to see if I can erase some of this stuff and maybe give you a little easier perspective on what's going on. So you'll be patient with me for just a moment. I'm talking so you won't think that the video has disappeared, but I'm going to do some erasing right here so you can get kind of a live picture as to what's going on. And I'll talk about this public-private business in just a very few minutes. I just want to get this screen really clean for you so you can see what's happening. So here's what goes on. These programs actually work hand in hand. They need to be saved in the same area in Java. The one over here on the right is called show student. This is going to actually take this blueprint. This is the class itself. This is the class definition. This whole program is the class definition right here, the whole program. And now we're going to create, and this one over here is actually going to create an instance, spell this correctly. This is actually going to create, sorry, and I'm having to deal with this and do videos and watch not being interrupted kind of all at the same time, because sometimes I get interruptions when I'm making these videos. It makes it a little bit challenging, and again I apologize for this on the fly stuff that happens sometimes when I'm making these videos. This actually allows me to create an object, and these headphones are slipping off my head from making this video, so again I apologize for it. Notice that main is right here, here we go, right here, and here's the way that I make an object of this class, or an instance of this class. I take the name of the class. The name of the class is student 1, and if you look over here on this end, again I'm crossing between two programs, folks, and you'll have to bear with me as I go through this because it gets a little crazy when I'm trying to do this on video. You'll notice right here that I've got the word student 1 and a phrase called new. This is the standard syntax, if you will, for creating an object. You put the name of the class and you put the word new and the name of the class also. You've seen something similar to this when you had to do scanner, or when you had to do J-option pane, or when you had to do math. A lot of times you would see the word new there. Here's what happens. The name of the variable, which we call an object here, is called in this case Java dude. So what's going to happen as soon as this statement right here that I'm starring is executed, and I'm just putting this on the other side just to make it easier to see it, what will happen is there will be an object created called Java dude. And the data type, instead of being int, instead of being a double, instead of being a string, Java dude is a data type called student 1. Now what student 1 consists of is, again trying to juggle these pens here trying to work out. Student 1 consists of a name, a GPA over here on the left, and number of hours. So I'm going to put the word name right there, the word GPA, and the word hours. Now, how does that information get there? It's not just as straightforward as assigning it like we did in other programs. What I have to do is I have to use this JavaDude word a lot all the way through this program. So you'll notice that I have the word JavaDude right here when I create the object, and you'll see JavaDude used a lot in the rest of the program. Now I've got the word JavaDude and the dot, and there will be a call to one of the methods called setHours, and you see the number 24 in there. What happens is that 24, I'll go over here where it says setHours, and I'll put this in yellow just to give you a color code here. What happens is the number 24 that is right here in the parentheses, and I'm having some challenges again with the pen, I apologize. The 24 right there is passed into this particular method, so the 24 becomes the value that is passed in over here on the left. You have to look at both sides of your screen right here. The 24 becomes the value for H. I have to have a means of catching that number. And what happens in the next sentence, it says hours equals H. So what happens, 24 is the value for H, so hours becomes 24. And that causes the 24 to be put in this particular spot for the JavaDude object. This is the only way that you can access classes in Java and in C++. You can't just do something that just says hours equals 24 like you did in your other programs. You have to do this through the class methods. It's the only way that it works. When I go over here now to javadude.setName, setName happens to be yet another method. It's got the word Michael and it's in quotes. Because if I go over here to setName, and I'm putting this in color code to help you out, setName, which is the blue guy right here, what happens is the value Michael is assigned right here to the letter N. So N is Michael. It's kind of like you're handing a ticket to a security guard and then they hand it to somebody else. It's just passing it across. And that name value, which is the name of the property, in student 1, name gets assigned as Michael. You may see the pattern by now somewhat. When I go over here to the program on the right again, I've got something called javadude dot, see if I can get some more colors here, javadude.setGPA, another method called, notice that everything's associated with JavaDude. So when I go to setGPA, again looking on the left hand side of your screen, the G value is 3.7, and that G value is assigned to the GPA. So now I have an object in my class called JavaDude. The name is Michael, the GPA is 3.7, the hours 24. Now I come to this part of the program now. If you look over at the definition of the class, you'll see the word private. Again, if you look at your screen visually, you'll see the word private right here. The purpose of the word private with classes is, and this is not a good example of it, but you have to begin somewhere. You want to be able to keep the user of the program, you want to keep the person from being able to access stuff that should be private. For example, if I go back to the concept, and maybe I can pull this up, I'll see if I can. If you remember the concept of the vending machine, that's probably a good example. In the vending machine, you want to keep certain things from happening. You want the person to be able to put money in the machine. You want them to be able to get their food, but you want to keep them from doing certain other things. You don't want them to you don't want the average customer to refill the machine. You don't want them to steal the money. You want to protect that information from stuff that the user doesn't have any business doing. And that's what we're doing in a class, and that's typically why we make the properties, name, GPA, double, and all that, we keep them as private values. The word private there means that the only way you can access that information is by using one of the methods that's in the definition of the class. So in other words, where normally you would think over here on the right hand side, and I'll see if I can make this a little bit better for you. I'm not sure how clear this will be on the screen. I may do some risking here. What happens right here, normally you would think that in, and I'm going to erase this again just for visual purposes, normally you would think I would just do system.out.println and just write the word name. But we can't do that with classes. Two reasons. Number one, the word name is not defined anywhere in this program right here at all, so the computer would be upset about it. Secondly, the only way I can access the information from an object is to use the method that goes with it. And that's why over on the left hand side that we have definitions in here that are called get name, get GPA, and get hours. And it depends on what object's doing it. So in order to print this information out, again, hopefully you can see all this. It's a little bit tricky for me to do this on the video, but I'll do my best and hope this is going to work out for you. Let me scoot this up a little bit higher, and hopefully this will be easier to see. I would do system.out.println, but notice what happens here. I've got a call to the object Java dude, and I've got a routine called get name. There's nothing in parentheses right here. Because what's going to happen, the computer's going to go over here to the other side, and it's going to go to the routine called get name. And it says to return the value of name. What you're doing is returning that back to the main program. We know the value of name because earlier, if you recall, we created an object called JavaDude, which had a name that was called Michael. We had a GPA 3.7, and we had the number of hours they were taking, a very heavy 24 hours. So if I go over here and do javadude.getName, it's going to return the value of name, which is Michael, and it's going to send that value back to this program, and it's going to print that out. So it's going to take the word Michael. Again, I'm having some issues. I got a phone ringing, and I apologize for that. I can't control the outside issues that happen in this program. So hopefully if you're hearing "Are you there?" in the background, I hope it's not going to distract you. So I'm going to go to, it will print out the value that was returned from get name. Namely, in this case, it's going to print out the word Michael. Okay, in the next one, we've got javadude.getGPA. What it does is it goes to the method called getGPA. GetGPA, which is in yellow right here, says to return the value of GPA, which is 3.7, to the main program. So it goes over here, returns the 3.7 to this program, and that's what it prints out, system.out.println 3.7. Finally, when I go to javadude.getHours, it goes to the routine called getHours. It returns the value of hours, which is 24, and returns that over here to the main program. That's going to be a 24, and that's what prints out. It gets a bit confusing at first, but I will give you some guidelines to better help you understand what these classes are about. My suggestions, of course, are to read the textbook, and this is actually, regardless of what future videos say, the introduction to classes in your Java book for this particular book is in chapter, I think it's chapter, yes, it's chapter 6. You can also watch my videos. There are 4 of them. And you can also practice with exercises. And I hope this will help you out. If you have any questions, please let me know.